Hello, folks. Good evening.
Hello, Sam. Hello, Mr. Posey.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
What's up? What's up?
Hello, Dr. Holt.
Oh, Lord.
All right, folks. So I'll just take a moment to make sure that what Cadence laid out just a moment ago makes sense, and then I can share some of the discussion questions we're hoping to dive into. But yeah, I can open the floor.
Yes.
If not, I can pitch the first question, which is, I hear it as responsive to some of the things that you all shared with us last month when we came to visit, which is we were skipping a couple steps. We need to think big picture. What are some of the community's needs, and then work towards how it becomes integrated into this cover project. So the first question we have is that kind of big picture. What benefits do we want development in this area to provide? And are there some benefits that are more important than others? So I'd love to hear if folks have thoughts on that question. Yes, Mr. Posey. Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, okay. So I don't plan on being bashful about, what my thoughts are. Y'all know that. But listen to me on this. I'm really disappointed in Eco Northwest and Prosper Portland and all those guys, because out of all the things that they do, their ability to forecast is pretty important. For example, you all know that in the future, and you can look at stock exchange and all the other things, you all know that healthcare and education are the two areas in which most of the jobs are being generated historically and futuristically. So I can't understand why you all are, why Prosper and Eco Northwest are not putting out various models on what that would look like. And not only what it would look like, how would that impact the current disparities we have in employment in the Black community? And how can we close those gaps utilizing this I-5 project and the construction of these caps? And thirdly is that you all know the area of land that was taken away and gentrified is right over there with Legacy and all that land over there. I think Bryson's on this call. You all are trying to put some kind of building up over there. And to me, it seems like a no-brainer that we ought to have a health education science center similar to what the white folk are doing on the riverfront. Y'all building all kinds of stuff up on the riverfront down there. Why come we can't do the same thing over here in the hood where the community has been taken away? Why wouldn't Eco Northwest make some proposals, share what that would look like? How would that close the economic wealth gap? What would that do? Y'all understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you.
That's my vision, is that we have a master plan to make Northeast Portland, that area, the Mecca, the center for all healthcare training and development in the Northwest, right there on that spot.
So, Mr. Posey, I'm hearing a couple things. One is that it sounds like job creation is the highest priority for you, and you're already, tuned in enough to know that healthcare and education are really good uses that could help support the benefit of job creation. And so that sounds like that would take the cake, kind of. That would be your highest priority for development in that area, is to support job creation and kind of have that future lens for making sure, you're able to provide the workforce for where the jobs are going to be in the future.
Yeah, I don't want y'all to relegate me to just brick and mortar, wheelbarrow, dump truck stuff. I'm talking about high level high-level scientific employment and jobs and businesses. We got the whole chip factory coming out to Hillsborough. Ain't nobody tried to hook up, connect the dots between those chip factories and those billions of dollars going out to Hillsborough, and how do we leverage that money coming back into the hood? You all understand? So don't talk about jobs in a vacuum. Talk about it in the full spectrum of how we empower the Black community so we can be players in this economic regime that we got going forward, in which we've been basically left out of.
Hear you. And I think to tie it to this next question too is it most important to you to be thinking about that job creation and workforce training on the cover, or is this like a district wide throughout Albina district? You know, you want that to be present in any and all development that's taking place there. Is that the shape of the district overall and its priorities that you think should be at the top?
Of course, I'm saying that it could be the centerpiece. It could be the igniter, the energizer. I don't know what term you want to call it, but it could be the driving element to drive the whole region. And this benefits not only the Black community, it benefits the whole area, our whole community. You know, I'm from Indianapolis, and I use that model because there in Indianapolis, that the medical profession, everybody goes there for cancer. I mean, it's worked on intentionally making itself the medical capital of the Midwest. And we could do some of that same things here. We have all the components to make it most effective. And let me just say, just real quickly, we could make it the Black training center for the rest of the nation. We could be the prototype for how we close these gaps. And you all ain't thinking that way. Don't seem like to me. Y'all need to be trying to focus on how we get this money into some educational streams that's going to change the 50% achievement gap between Black kids and white kids and close this gap so we can all be beneficials to this in this community. Y'all ain't thinking like that. It seems like to me.
Well, partly, Mr. Posey, we need to hear from you, and so I'm taking notes on, you know, the points that you're making about the purpose in your mind of how this district develops, and especially on the cover, is to close gaps in Black outcomes compared to the rest of the community. And you've definitely noted education and jobs as being high priority items.
Yeah, and you can tie it directly to those disparity studies that's already been laid out to us. Make a comparative study of how this project would impact that, not only in terms of these lower level jobs, but I'm talking across the spectrums of jobs. If you tie it to an outcome that has a high level chance of achieving and bringing forth a productivity to our community that will close this gap. This is what you all do. Y'all do it. Y'all economists. Y'all can put out models. Y'all can share stuff. Y'all can give us an entree into what it would look like, and you can give us options, and we can look at various scenarios in which we can help us make decisions about what we want to do and how we want to do it. That's what I'm looking for. Eco Northwest, and you need to partner with Prosper Portland. Do you all understand what their mission statement is in Prosper Portland? I do. I've read it. Why ain't they? I mean, I don't see them on y'all's team. Are they not? Are y'all working together? Or are y'all working separately?
Mr. Posey, we're right here. We're Amy Nagy from Prosper Portland. It's good to see you. We work super close with the Eco Northwest. I think what you're calling for and what you're asking for, I hear you. I think there's time to absolutely do that. I think also what we were hearing from the HAAB was we'd like to share our ideas as well, in addition to what you all have been sharing over the past couple of months. So it's not that the disparity studies and the opportunities aren't there. We have Advanced Portland, which is the economic strategy for the city of Portland that highlights where we're competitive as a city in different industry clusters. So happy to share that. I just think what we were trying to do was also be respectful and hear what your thoughts, the group's thoughts in terms of the HABs on different areas, but we can absolutely supplement with other information too, for sure.
Hey, and one final thing here. I want to know from you all's perspective, how does this fit into the overall comprehensive economic development strategy by Greater Portland, which most Black people don't know a daggum thing about, but y'all know about it. Y'all, how does that integrate to that big comprehensive plan that's been funded by the federal government to increase? It was started out trying to make sure Black folk get some stuff done, but none of that has defaulted to being a benefit to our community. What is the integration between that plan and what you guys are thinking and what the prospects are for our community?
So I'm happy that we can absolutely go into that probably in a follow-up or a different time. I think where we're competitive right now is there's the broader kind of component of the region, and then there's where the city of Portland is more competitive. And so you're highlighting kind of the chip industry, et cetera. We tend to be, if you're looking at city of Portland proper, more in the metals and machinery, food and beverage manufacturing, software and media, athletic and outdoor. We have a bunch of different areas and industries that we are super competitive in. So we're happy to supplement the conversation. I think what we were hearing first was the HAAB members saying, we have ideas and we want to make sure that those get captured as you're thinking about broader district and city implications.
Yeah. Mr. Posey, I'd love to circle back after we hear from some of the other HAAB members as well, because while job creation I hear is a very high priority and integration with the larger strategic plan to close economic opportunity gaps for the Black community, I think there are likely other benefits that folks are hoping to see as well. And so I'd love to hear if other HAAB members have any thoughts that they'd like to share about some priorities for them in this area. Yeah, Joy, would you mind?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Hey y'all, Joy, she, her. I'll turn on my camera temporarily. My internet's being a little strange. It's nice to see you all or hear you all. I think what feels really important in this moment, and maybe let me take a step back. How you said this is opportunity for HAAB members to share our thoughts. How is this going to be weighed against community thoughts, or is there like a data-driven approach? So I have a question before I answer your question.
Sure. So we are primarily looking for the HAAB to drive what uses the Echo Northwest team will then go forth and use to model and come up with some estimates of construction costs as well as operation costs that can continue to be used. We know there's a lot of other engagement activities happening out there, and we're trying our best to learn from what was already shared in some past work like the independent cover assessment. But we are really hoping for the HAAB to be one of the main drivers of helping us select those uses that we're going to model and bring back to you all in the fall. So y'all are our primary audience.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. I would say then I feel like it's very important for the use of this site to be something that is built up. I heard a little bit earlier about, like, at the very least we need to have a park, but for me it's really important. What I've been hearing from folks like Posey and other folks on the HAAB is the need for to actually be something that is built. So that I just want that to be noted in there. I think also I think what's really important is for us to figure out a way that the use is flexible and that there is an overall governing body that allows for change over time. What I would hate to happen is that we say we want a bunch of office spaces and, in 10 years, we find out that the way we work has changed, which is, I think, the moment we're in right now. So for me, I think it is making sure that there is enough flexibility so that the tenants of the space or the governing body can go through a process and decide what is best suited for the time. I echo what Mr. Posey mentioned in terms of making sure that we have opportunities for folks to have wealth advancement. I'm thinking also around workers' rights and other things that are coming up against Black folks, that it's not always just having access to a job or entrepreneurship. It's actually what happens afterwards feels just as important as making sure there's access. But for me, I think what benefits I have is really thinking at a high level around shared management and governance of this site feels really important. It feels important to make sure that whatever we build allows for tenants to be able to come together and decide what is missing in that space. So tons of community space in there that are flexible, different ways for retail, different ways for restaurants. But I guess in this moment, I don't know if it matters to me, like the number of restaurants or like the number of office spaces, more in the sense that it just needs to be something that's built and flexible for folks to move around. I say that in the sense that I am in a building right now in Old Town. I'm in the Merchant Hotel, Second and Davis, and there's tons of empty space, in particular in Old Town. And I think because we got a little bit too obsessed with dictating that use and not allowing for that flexibility. I don't know if like housing is a conversation in this space. If I'm quite honest, I'm not sure if anyone would want to like physically live there. Feels very important. I think there's some air quality things that I have some deeper long-term concerns around. But for me, it's really about the governance feels really important. That is a key benefit and something that have seen Black folks not have the ownership of being able to decide and be able to change with the times. What I would hate to happen is that we are picking a use that is something that is like very trendy or something that I'm still, as an org, we were formerly known as the Portland African American Leadership Forum. I'm still, holding some of that trauma of what happened with Trader Joe's and things where we were choosing things without connecting back to community. So without me overly ranting, I think the governance feels very important.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Joy, for sharing that. I heard definitely very clearly that you want the space to be able to be flexible so that the use can change over time, and that has implications for what that structure would likely look like. I also heard you saying that it's not, you don't want to see a whole lot of open space on the cover. You do want to see vertical development. Is that pretty much across the cover, or do you see any importance in having open space on the cover?
I do see some importance of it, but to me, it feels like it is I don't think it is the primary use, if I'm quite honest. Or if I do see any, I think there's some really interesting things we can do with like rooftop access and things and other green spaces on top of the building, whether it is, I've seen some beautiful like gardens up there and other ways that are, I'm not in particular, I would say like covered spaces on the roof, knowing where we are. But I think green space obviously increases the usability of the space, but I don't want to personally to see like another park there. I do think the things that I've heard from Posey and other folks is really about making sure that there is that folks can access in a way that is covered fully.
Yeah, I hear you. And then, yeah, the final point that you were making about the governance, who has power to really shape what happens on the cover in the long term is maybe even more important to you than, what are the first types of development that show up, but really who has the say in what continues to happen over time. Thank you. Are there any other HAAB members who'd like to add on to what they've heard from Mr. Posey or from Ms. Joy, or add any other ideas? So if, based on what we've heard from Mr. Posey and Ms. Joy, the cover development starts to look like a flexible workforce development center, and let's see, what else might show up there? A healthcare facility. Does that seem like it meets some of the benefits that you're all hoping to see for the community?
Well, you keep structuring my comments as one thing or the other. I said education and healthcare very clearly. Not just for the sake of having healthcare, but as we have this real gap between Black people and white people in these education systems. And so I'm looking for this to be able to close those gaps. And, you know, you categorizing it either one or the other, it's all of the above. Because these are things that I didn't say was going to be the future. All the documentation says that healthcare and education is where the jobs are. Not only is it where the jobs are, it's the basis of what we do, everything else, especially the education piece. This whole, in the previous section there, Mike from PDOT was talking about the architects and engineers. We don't have that many Black architects and engineers, quite frankly. And we ought to do something about that. And we ought to use this process to help do something about that. I think you all ought to talk about maybe putting together a facility on the thing that would bring Black professionals from across the nation, from the HBCUs here, to study, to train, and develop themselves, and give them the option of staying here once they get their training and development to help build up the Black community. We have an exodus of Black intellectual property leaving here every day because it's not a welcoming place. This is no-brainer stuff, y'all. We can figure this out. We know what's happening here. We know we don't have enough Black professionals in our body to help drive some of the agendas we're talking about today. That's why y'all got to listen to James Posey talk, because you've got some other people out here who would be here if they could be here. So, I mean, y'all know what to do.
Mr. Posey, I'm sorry if yeah, my comments narrowed what your idea was a little bit too much. I am trying to understand what type of, educational center could meet the many needs that it sounds like you've brought up. And, we're having a conversation about what things are most important to be on the cover and what things are we trying to accomplish as a whole throughout the district. And given that it can be challenging to develop on an actual capped highway cover, is it important? We need to continue to press to have some of those types of development on the cover. And which ones are, we know it's going to be something that's important for the district overall, but we're not going to prioritize to happen on top of the cover necessarily.
So I want to reiterate what Dr. Joy was saying about being flexible, but not only does it need to be flexible, it needs to be sustainable over time in terms of, we don't want anything on that cover that's going to be dead-ended. That's why I'm talking about, we all know we're going to need education. We're going to forever need that. We're also going to need healthcare and health professionals. We already know that. Well, we don't want, like she said, I don't think trendy. We're not going to be selling no boots on top of the whatever. I don't want to benign booth sellers, but y'all know what these trends have been. You can see what these trends have been. You go throughout, look at some of these other communities around here. That's another piece, is why don't y'all share with us some of the projects across the nation that have been successful and that compare with us relative to population and demographics, and talk to us about how they were successful or not, so we can have a basis to help make some of these decisions.
I'd love to hear it from Joy again, because I see her hands is up.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I know we're running out of time. Thank you, Mr. Posey. Not quite a doctor yet, but like maybe one day I'll accept it as a future vision. But I would say what feels super important is this reminds me a little bit of some of the negotiations that happened during the Broadway corridor when it comes to the community benefit agreement and being able to dictate some of that use. And I think what I'm accepting and hearing from Mr. Posey and others is just wanting to make sure that we focus and center, as I know we've been talking about Black folks in this way. And I know this project can't necessarily create the nonprofit or create the business that will implement the things that Mr. Posey mentioned. But I do think, again, to me, I feel like it's really important to make sure the space is flexible and that there's a mix of different business types and uses in the space. I don't know if you all know yet, like what are the zoning, or like what our height options are, or what we can actually have on the site. I mean, I'm always like, would love a CM3 or something like that, but I know we might not be there yet. But I do think, again, it's flexibility. It's making sure we're recognizing that we may have an education center that can work with the spaces we have. But I mean, I think you can look at, the Black Education Center. There's so many great examples. But you mentioned about healthcare, and I think something that I would be really remiss if I don't mention is, like, I don't know if we're looking for an anchor tenant in this moment. I doubt we are, but I think there is something really important to what Mr. Posey mentioned around, like, an education center and job creation and workforce, and trying to find partners now that might want to be in this space. So I don't know, I just echo what he says, and I think it's creating partnerships now that might be interested in the space to help either offset those costs or to build out the vision that folks have. But I don't want us to get stuck on, like, what the scope of this project is, and be a little bit more creative.
Yeah, Mr. Posey?
Yeah, so I got one more thing, and I promise I'll be quiet for a minute. And that is, and Dr. Joy, whether you realize that you're already a doctor, but here's the deal. She is talking about ownership and control of the space. ODOT keeps skirting around it. Everybody keeps nibbling and don't want to address it like it's some kind of poisonous stuff. But at the end of the day, you all know we don't own a lot in this town, and this project should be owned by Black folk to the extent it can be, and we ought to engineer it that way. We ought to build into the structure that way so we can get some more Black ownership. How that process occurs, given the nature of where we are in this country right now, with everybody trying to throw Black inclusion and Black progress under the bus. I don't know how you all gonna do it, but you need to have it out on the table that we need to engineer this project so at the end of the day, it winds up being owned by Black people. I don't know if I can say that any clearer. Maybe I shouldn't be saying it because it gives people the opportunity to come at it. But at the end of the day, really, that's the big concern, is who gonna control the space and will it ultimately benefit Black people in the long run?
And Mr. Posey, just for clarity on this end, that's very much the role that AVT imagines itself playing on top of the cover, as both a developer and as a steward of the space that's capable of making sure that everything that gets built is not only built by and owned by the community that got pushed out the neighborhood to begin with, but that these spaces and the people that pass through them also work to concretize and build out the generational well-being of Black folks in Portland as well.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. And I see Joy added a little bit more detail as well that I think is helpful to keep in mind, thinking about commercial community land trust and using that model to allow Black folks to own or rent suites within a building. So we are talking about multiple potential parcels here, and I don't think our slide deck today showed the maps of all of those parcels. And so maybe Carrie or folks from the ODOT team, if you can help remind me how many total parcels on the cover we're looking at. This is part of what we're trying to suss out across all of these parcels, which ones are most important to be, vertical use, and, if it's, Carrie, do you have the number of parcels we're thinking about?
Yes, it's 5 parcels on the cover, and then 5 or 6 adjacent to the cover that are on terra firma, that have a whole lot less challenges to build.
Yeah, thank you. And so I'm hearing the top priority is very much control of the land, ownership of the land, and ensuring that any development that takes place is able to circulate benefits directly to the Black community And that seems to take precedent over, too many specific uses right now. I hear that loud and clear. I think even thinking about the diversity of, you're talking about a commercial community land trust, and you're talking about suites, like spots for businesses, Joy. There are still sometimes, considerations for a restaurant suite requires some different, development considerations than an office suite or other retail shops. So maybe that's just not the level of detail y'all are wanting to get into at that point. I'm hearing you say you want the space to be able to flex and accommodate different uses over time. Am I understanding correctly?
Yeah, I think you definitely are understanding correctly. I'm just looking across the city at some of the vacancies. I love like a restaurant on the first level. It's beautiful, and there's a lot of vacant spaces that were designed for that. So, yeah, that's just what I'm thinking. But I think you hit it. I think this ownership piece, and I envision a scenario where Albina Vision owns the land, and there's opportunities for folks to own their suite or to lease their suite or to have some of that shared governance. And I think it's a little bit, I know you can't prescribe that now, but I think being able to be clear about that intention would be really helpful. I do think that we could probably do I almost want to see a study or like, I don't know if we're there yet, but like, I want to see what the market is at or what do we have around this area? I know there's been some conversations around like entertainment districts and things around here and making sure that like, Black businesses are a part of that process, but I think fundamentally we need to start at a high level and be clear about the governance.
Yeah. And maybe more of a landscape assessment, what already is in the area is what I was starting to hear you talk about. I think, yeah, the team is going to maybe have to adjust a little bit how we're thinking about doing this initial phase of modeling to come up with, construction cost estimates and operating estimates, because without having specific uses in mind, it's harder for us to be able to, think about what are the job creation possibilities for this site. Yeah, Mr. Posey.
Yeah, again, I'm not talking exclusively jobs in the generic sense that you maybe are talking about. I'm not talking about asphalt, concrete. I'm talking about neurological science. That's what I'm talking about as a part of the mix. And what would be good for me, and I asked for Megan some time back, is for you all to put together a chart identifying the probabilities of opportunities, both business and jobs on these projects, tie them to NACE codes. So we'll know specifically what skills are involved in what's going to be embedded in the construction and the development of this project. So we could actually forecast what the probabilities will be out there in terms of our people and how we fit them into the mix. And so we can have some kind of front end knowledge of where we need to go, how we need to get there, because y'all can do that. You know what's craft skills and projects allocation for the crafts and skills. You know that, and the typical job ranges. You all do this for a living, I think. Why wouldn't y'all share that with us? Why wouldn't y'all give us that information? Why wouldn't y'all go deep and help us figure some of this stuff out like that? You already know. I mean, you at a higher level with the brick and mortar, help us figure out the other stuff.